everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Monday, April 29th, 2024. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in the MLB, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. We have a smaller card on Monday. Here are those games in baseball. First up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Baltimore Orioles. We got Grayson Rodriguez and Clark Schmidt as the projected starters. Grayson Rodriguez struggling a bit recently. We saw that last game, 7 earned runs and 11 base hits in 4 1/3 innings, a home run in that game as well. We know he's got great strikeout stuff, but he does give up a lot of sharp contact, at least right now. And we saw, last year he had some issues with that. The Yankees are crushing right-handed pitching this year. We saw what they did against the Brewers in the game on Saturday, and I worry about Rodriguez early in this start. Now, the Orioles have been a late-inning team. They have a solid bullpen. The Yankees' bullpen, while their numbers ERA-wise are pretty solid, the expected numbers aren't the best, and the Orioles have been able to find offense almost every game in the late innings. So I'm just going to take the Yankees in the first 5 innings. I think Clark Schmidt's a solid option here for New York to start this game, so give me the Yanks in the first 5. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Detroit Tigers. Steven Matz and Kenta Maeda are the starters. In this matchup, I think we have 2 solid bullpens, 2 lineups that are struggling quite a bit to start the year, and, a starting pitching matchup that I think Detroit actually has the advantage in by quite a large margin. I think, even though when you look at the ERAs, these pitchers look very similar in terms of their struggles early on, I think there are 2 guys going in different directions. I mean, Steven Matz, he started the season strong, but his last 2 games, 12 earned runs combined. And then Kenta Maeda, who we know he struggled in spring training, he wasn't great to start the season. He's coming off his best start of the year against the Tampa Bay Rays. It was 5 innings, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs, only 3 base hits, and no walks as well. So exactly what you want to see from Maeda, what you're used to seeing from him in his major league career. I think Maeda is the better option to start this game, and I'm going to go with the Detroit Tigers at home on the money line. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Miami Marlins. We're going to see Trevor Rogers and Jake Irvin on the other side for Washington. Now, Trevor Rogers, his numbers so far aren't the best. I mean, an ERA above 4, but he's also faced a pretty tough schedule. His last 3 games against the Braves twice and the San Francisco Giants. We mentioned the Giants really hit lefties well at the beginning of the season. So, now he faces a Nationals team that's got one of the worst numbers against lefties in OPS, isolated power. I think it's a much more beneficial spot for Rogers. And on the other side, Jake Irvin, while I do like his game, we can't deny that he had his worst start of the season by far in that last game. Now, that was against the Dodgers. The Marlins are not the Dodgers, but still, 12 base hits, 6 earned runs. It is concerning. And, to me, there's not going to be too many spots, or at least not right now, that I'm going to be liking the Marlins. But I think this is actually a pretty solid one for Miami playing at home. I'm going to go with the Marlins on the money line in this one. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Kansas City Royals. No official starter for KC. Yariel Rodriguez should be going for the home team. Now, Rodriguez has pitched pretty well this year, sub-4 ERA. He doesn't really pitch deep into ball games, though. That's a little bit of concern when you look at how the Blue Jays bullpen has struggled. I also don't love the expected numbers for Rodriguez. I do expect some regression in his game, and this is a tough Royals lineup against righties. So I do like the offense here for Kansas City, but the Royals' no official starter could be a bullpen game. This bullpen, while it's improved, still the expected number is some of the worst in baseball. And I think Toronto is a lineup that's kind of waiting for a breakout series. They've been really good against lefties, not so much against righties, but I still think the talent's there. I think we see a high-scoring game and a high-scoring series in this one. I'm going to go with the over. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the New York Mets. Jameson Taillon and Luis Severino are your starters. I think Luis Severino was really unlucky in that last game against San Francisco, where he was pitching really well and efficiently against San Francisco, but in the 5th inning, just a couple of ground ball base hits and some weak line drive base hits piled up against him. They found some runs and kind of ruined his outing. The Mets didn't really back him up in the run support department, but I still think Severino's pitching well this year, especially after he struggled quite a bit in that first game. He's been solid since, and I like him in this spot. I think he has another quality start, and Jameson Taillon, he's pitched well himself. But this is a tough spot here for the Cubs. They played on Sunday Night Baseball. We mentioned that teams traveling after a Sunday Night Baseball contest have not fared too well, at least in recent years, and in terms of profitability on the money line. So I'm going to go with the New York Mets in this one on the money line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Chicago White Sox. Joe Ryan and Garrett Crochet are your starters. Now, these teams played recently last week, and this was actually the same exact pitching matchup in the April 24th game, where it was a 6-3 Twins win. And in that game, the Twins offense was able to get to Crochet 4 innings, 7 base hits, and 5 earned runs, with a home run to go with it. And overall, the Twins lineup is starting to get going here, both against lefties and righties. Honestly, they had a big series offensively against the Los Angeles Angels this weekend. So the Twins starting to turn it around. I think they get to Crochet, who is just not in good form. After a great start to the year, he's now given up at least 5 earned runs in each of his last 3 games. So I worry about him here. Joe Ryan pitched well in that game against Chicago. It was a quality start. It wasn't his best game. Still gave up a couple of home runs, but 8 strikeouts. He was able to miss some bats, and I think he pitches well enough here for the Twins to win this game and cover the run line. I know Chicago was a lot more competitive this weekend than we're used to seeing from this year, but I think the Twins are just red hot right now offensively. I got to go with them in this spot. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Ryan Pepiot and Bryce Wilson are your starters. Now, I do expect quite a bit of regression for Bryce Wilson as the season continues. He's already given up 4 home runs in 18 innings, only 15 strikeouts to go with it. I think the Rays get to him early in this game, and I think Pepiot, I've mentioned, I think he's a solid starting pitching option for Tampa Bay. He's starting to put it together. I mean, his last 2 games, both quality starts, 6 innings, 1 earned run apiece, and his strikeout numbers are there. I think he pitches well. The problem is this Rays bullpen. It's just, you never know what you're going to get from the Rays bullpen, and honestly, most of the time, it's been not very good things. So I think that with the Brewers bullpen being as strong as it is, they have an advantage if this is a close game late. So I'm just going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays in the first 5 innings in this one. I think they'll have the lead through the middle innings. Next up, we see the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Christopher Sanchez and Griffin Canning are your starters. I do think Griffin Canning is going to turn it around at some point, and we saw the signs of that last game. 5 innings, 3 runs, not miserable against the Baltimore Orioles. Tough lineup that he already faced once this year, but to me, it's just not going to be enough. I mean, I just don't see the Angels' offense doing enough here against solid starting pitching option in Sanchez, who's in great form. His last 3 games, 1 earned run or fewer in all 3 of those starts. He misses bats. He does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. No home runs yet at all this year. 24 and a third innings, no home runs given up. So, that's one thing, but also the bullpens. While the Phillies bullpen ERA is not good right now, the expected numbers are fine. I expect a lot of positive regression there. I'm not worried about it, and I think they have the big advantage in the bullpen in this game. So I'm going to go with the Phillies in this one on the money line, maybe lay 1.5 runs as well. Next up, it's the Atlanta Braves taking on the Seattle Mariners. Max Fried and Bryce Miller are your starters. I know this is not an easy spot here for the Braves who have to go from Atlanta to Seattle, after playing on Sunday this weekend in Atlanta, but I still think that Max Fried's pitching really well. It's the Max Fried we're used to seeing. I mean, he struggled quite a bit in spring training. He carried that over to the regular season. His first game, he wasn't able to get out of the first inning. Then the next game, he gave up a ton of runs in the first inning, but he was able to settle down and give the Braves some good innings against Arizona, and they were able to go on to win that game. And then, since that game, he has pitched really well. 6 1/3 1-run ball against the Marlins in an 8-1 win. Struggled a bit against the Astros, but that's a really good Astros lineup against lefties, and it still was a Braves win in the end. And then recently, his best start of the season by far, a complete game shutout against Miami. His second time facing the same lineup in about 10 days, and he was razor sharp on that one. So now you're facing a Mariners team that the numbers aren't great against lefties. Bryce Miller on the other side, I like him as a starting pitcher overall, but he's also given up 3 home runs in his last 2 starts, and this is a really powerful Braves lineup. They've been able to get to most righties that they faced this year, so I think we see the Braves take this one. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves. I think the Mariners are going to be competitive in this series, but not so much in this first game. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the San Diego Padres. Nick Lodolo and Matt Waldron are your starters. The Padres started the season crushing lefties, but their numbers have cooled off quite a bit. We saw them struggle against Ranger Suarez the other day against Philadelphia, and Nick Lodolo is in great form going into this game. He's 2-0, 2.12 ERA. His only road start of the season was at the White Sox, and it was a weak lineup, but still 5 2/3 innings of 1-hit baseball with 10 strikeouts, no earned runs, and the Reds are 3-0, both straight up, and they've won all 3 of those games by more than 2 runs this season. So they're winning games, they're winning them in big ways. And, Matt Waldron, it's tough to know what you're going to get from him. He's been a little bit inconsistent this year. He does give up some sharp contact. We saw that, home runs per 9 has been a little bit steep throughout his career. And in the last 2 games, at least 1 home run given up. You're facing a Reds team. It's got a lot of power. They had a lot of extra base hits, home runs. So against righties especially, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Reds in this one. Should be a fun series, but I like Cincinnati in this first game. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. James Paxton and Tommy Henry are your starters. I think this is a good spot here for Arizona. I think there's value with the Diamondbacks. Even though Henry struggled this year, I still think when you look at the Dodgers' numbers against lefties and then against righties, they are crushing righties. The numbers against lefties right around league average. The Diamondbacks, though, they are number 1 in baseball right now in team OPS against left-handed pitching. They started the season strong when they faced Kyle Freeland and got 10 runs or so in the early innings, and they haven't cooled off. I mean, they're very low strikeout rate, 16.2%, high isolated power, high OPS, now high BABIP as well, 360, probably going to regress there. But James Paxton is not somebody that I also see some regression in his game. Sub 3 ERA. But when you look at the per nines, only 11 strikeouts in 20 and 2/3 innings. So, right around a strikeout every other inning. That's not what you want to see from a guy like Paxton. And then you add in the 17 walks. So a 17 to 11 walk to strikeout ratio. No bueno for me. He's had only 2 strikeouts his last 9 and 2/3 innings with 11 walks to go with it. So we mentioned the 17-11. How about 11-2 in the last 2 games? I think he's due for a major, regression. I think the Diamondbacks are the perfect team to get to him because they are crushing lefties. So in this game, I'm going to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks on the money line, getting a really good price. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Oakland Athletics. Bailey Falter and Joe Boyle are your starters. Now, I know the Oakland A's have been a lot more competitive and fun to watch, really, on the road than they have been at home. But I still think I just like what I'm seeing from this A's team overall. Last year, really not a competitive team, but they've been able to compete with some of the tougher teams. We saw them, have some very entertaining games against the Baltimore Orioles this weekend. They stole a couple games from the New York Yankees before that. So this team, they're stepping up against some of the best in the American League. Now you're facing the Pirates, who had a really hot start to the year. But, Bailey Falter, I do expect regression in his game. He has not been great on the road. The A's have great power numbers against lefties. Now, Joe Boyle, we know the big problem with his game is the control. He walks a lot of guys, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, they are a pretty patient lineup. They have one of the higher walk percentages against righties this year. However, I do think when you look at the Pirates, they're also near the top of the league in ground ball percentage. So Boyle, while he's not a ground ball pitcher, he may be able to get out of some jams with some double plays if he's able to keep the ball on the ground. And in Pittsburgh, above 50% ground ball percentage as a team. So I'm going to go with the Oakland Athletics in this one. I think we're getting a really good price with a team that's a lot more competitive than what we thought. And, I'm going to go with the Oakland A's here on the money line. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and put those baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bet, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.